Bonjour, everybody. Hi, this is Neshi Lokat. So welcome to Star Nation's organization's main fan page and to the card draw of the day. Happy Thursday. It's a good Thursday. It's kind of a quiet Thursday. I like quiet days. They don't come as often as I would like, but Thursday, this Thursday is a quiet day. Quiet enough for me to sit back and have a cup of coffee earlier in the morning. And that's always a treat, always a treat. So welcome. The card draw that I've been doing for the last month and a half or so here on Star Nations really started back in October of last year. I had always drawn cards for the day, and I thought I was looking for a way to share things on Instagram, on our business account. And so I started posting like a sentence or two of the card draw that I was doing. And in May, I had this bright idea, this aha moment, that I was going to share this with the community here at Star Nations and talk about kind of like the back story of the card draw. I thought maybe you guys would be interested in hearing some of that and actually having some discussion about it, questions, or just even to make the connections, to say hello to each other, right? And so that's how that got started. And how long will it last? Until Spirit tells me to do something else with it. I don't see any end in the foreseeable future. I was actually looking at my other decks of cards and wondering when we should move on to a new deck, although I really enjoy Jamie Sam's cards, and that's the one that we're using. We're using the Sacred Path cards by Jamie Sams, and the illustrator is by Linda Childers. Linda Childers is the illustrator for the cards. I like Jamie Sam's take on information because she comes at it from a couple of different directions. She comes at it from her Seneca roots, which is a tribal nation here in the United States, Turtle Island, that's part of the Iroquois Nation, the Haudenosaunee. And so she draws from that, but she also draws from the Choctaw and the Cherokee, and she draws from the Lakota and the Tinglet and the Yaqui, which is part of my ancestry. Some tribal people down in Mexico, which is part of the Yaqui Nation. So she draws from a lot of different cultures, indigenous cultures. And she does that firsthand. She actually spent time with the grandmothers in those places to receive training and direction. And so it's firsthand information. And I like to read about other tribal nations and how they see things, because we don't have just one way to express it, right? And so that kind of leads to today's card draw, really. It was, like I said, a quiet morning. And so I was having my first cup of coffee, and I was going to do the card draw. And my husband's home. He started working the new shift, the second shift. Yay! No longer third shift. And he's up earlier in the morning, and so he's not quite used to the way we do things in the mornings, And so he was just kind of watching and wondering, helping me with breakfast stuff. And when I sat down to do the card draw, he was asking me about how to shuffle the cards. And I said, well, how I was taught is that you take the deck of cards when they're brand new. You take them and you light a candle and you dedicate them to the light, and only the light. And only the light will come through the cards, right? And so I told him that I was taught that you knock on the deck to knock out the energy of either the previous person or the previous question. And you also call to your spiritual team. And when I do that, I ask the entire team to come to assist and to show me what is important the energy for the day to know about, for the highest good, and that I can share with others. And so he was asking me because I was shuffling, right? And I like Jamie Sam's cards. One, I like the color of them, but they're also, if you know the size, they're more elongated, rectangle, right? And most cards are more square. And see, and when you shuffle these cards, you're going up more at a horizontal, not horizontal, but a vertical shuffle. And you hold the energy of the question, right? And as you're shuffling, and he was watching me, and he said, when the card came out of the deck, he goes, "You aren't kidding when you say they jump out of the deck." And I said, "No, I'm not." I said, "I'm not the one choosing. I'm not the one saying, I think I want that card." I said that my spiritual team will kick out the card that is most important for us to know about for that day. And I said some other people who use decks of oracle cards or divination cards, what they'll do is they'll do a spread. They'll go something like this, right? And then they will get their guidance to choose which card. Some people spread them out on a table on a flat surface and mix them up, and then draw using their intuition from that. But for a single card draw and to get information, that's how I do it. And so Paul, we've been together for 40 years, and I've been doing cards for probably at least 20, 25. And that's the first time he's ever asked me how it happens, how it goes. I want to check something here. I'm going to write a message in the comment because I don't have any comments going, and I don't know if there's an issue with the live stream. So I'm just going to say good morning, and we'll see if it populates. And if you're in the chat room, if you can tell me that you can see the message, that would be perfect. Because that way I know that there's not a situation happening, technical difficulty, as they say. So the card that we got this morning that was given to us is the talking stick. It's about viewpoints and options. Viewpoints and options. And we've had this card before, the talking stick. The talking stick comes from our ancestors, and how they would communicate in large groups. The large groups, like when the council would come together, and the council in the old days would have been the clan leaders. It would have been the hereditary chief. It would have been and that the word chief is actually a misinterpreted translated word from an indigenous language to English, okay, or possibly French. And it's just about leadership. Someone who takes the leadership of the entire nation, all of the clans, right? In a Celtic or an old Irish tradition, it would be the High King, okay? But there's no royalty, nothing like that. And so the clans would come together, and each clan would have a leader, and they would come together to make a decision, let's say, about something that's going to affect everybody in the nation, amongst the clans, right? And they would also have the medicine people there. They might have the holy person, man and woman of each of the clans. They would have maybe an herbal healer, anybody that had anything to do with the clan overall. And they would meet. and it could be quite a large crowd, right? And so there had to be some way to be able to hear everybody's voice and be respectful and not talk over each other, or interrupt each other, right? And so the concept of the talking stick came about. And so the person who had the talking stick literally had the floor. It's not quite Robert's Rules of Order, but it's similar. It's similar. And so the person with the stick had the stick and had the opportunity to express their thoughts and their opinions. Everyone's voice had value, even though they may have a differing opinion, directly in opposition to yours. They still, everyone's voice was heard and not interrupted, not talked over. And so even the kids, even the children, they started them early in using the talking stick or a talking stick, so that they would know what to do. It'd be like learning etiquette in a way, right? And there were different talking sticks. There just wasn't one. Whoever called the gathering, the meeting together, would bring their talking stick, and it would be decorated. It would be decorated with intention, consciously done, adding the medicine or the spirit of the tree, the spirit of any of the animal parts that might be used, feathers, hide, plants, those kinds of things. And so they were very conscious and aware of what they were adding to the stick, because the person who is speaking about whatever they're meeting about, that person's energy, if you will, their medicine would be layered with the talking stick's medicine. And so so the respect was for the person, but it was also for the medicine of the stick. So, as I was drinking my coffee, I was thinking about what this card could mean for us today, and that meaning of the talking stick. Since we've had this before, and how Jamie wrote about the stick and the importance of the medicine that goes into the stick, right? How it's decorated and how it's used. And I was thinking about how we in modern day, when we're in groups, and sometimes when it's very formal, that's where the Robert's Rules of Order comes in. I remember when I was I was a trustee for the village of Poinet when we lived there, and having to take out the old Robert's Rules of Order book and dust it off because I hadn't used it in so long, and to know the protocol, right? And so there's a way to be able to have your voice heard. The difference between that and the talking stick is that the listeners are being respectful, and they're listening to your perspective about something, your opinion, your thoughts and your feelings about something. And so we have this ability to share in a way that we're really being heard, even though our opinion, our thoughts may be in direct opposition to the person who called the meeting or to others in the group. And so they were able to express themselves, to have their voice heard. And the reason why I think that's important, especially in modern day, is, we have so much information coming at us all the time, between technology, the computer, the internet, cable TV, the old-fashioned AM/FM radio. We have satellite radio. We have a lot of information, and something that happens way over on the other side of the world, we can hear about relatively soon, sometimes within minutes, sometimes within hours. We have the full story, or we think we have the full story. And so we have a lot of information coming to us, and how to discern all of that. And how do we use a talking stick in modern day? When we're doing groups on Skype or Zoom, or you're having a teleconference, right? And how do you go about making sure, when you're the facilitator, making sure that everyone's voice is heard and that people aren't talking over each other? And if there is a disagreement, how that is taken care of, because usually what happens in a disagreement, verbal disagreement, is that you start talking at the same time, right? The opposing parties start talking at the same time, and voices start getting louder and louder. And so, as a facilitator, how do you do that? How do you end that? But more importantly, how do you make sure that both parties' voice is being heard? And the importance, I think, of the voice being heard from everybody, everyone's opinion is valuable, is it helps us to see, sense, feel a topic or a situation from a different perspective from our own. Because many times, when we have our own perspective, and it's the one way that we know what works or what could work. And so sometimes what we have is more like a tunnel vision or blinders on, and we can only see that one path. When there's a possibility that there is either a better path, or there's things within that path that we may not have considered. And so listening to someone else's point of view becomes an eye-opener, literally, a mind opener. When you can listen to somebody with an open mind, and more importantly, an open heart, even though they may be in opposition, so that you can see the different sides of a situation. The old cliche is there's two sides to every story, which is true. And there's probably more than two sides, depending on how many people are in there, in the situation, or the event, and experiencing it, because they hold their own perspective. I like to say that this imagery is that if you're in, let's say, a living room, and in the center of the room is the problem or the event or the person or whatever you came together to discuss, right? And you're sitting around the room. Let's say you're sitting in a circle or semicircle. How you're looking at it from where you're sitting is going to be different than the person sitting across the room from you looking at the same situation. You could be looking at the situation or the person straight on, and so you can see their face, you can see the front of their body, right? The person across the room from you sees that person differently, that's standing in the middle of the room. They're seeing the back of them, the back of their head, the back of their body. The same person, but it's a different perspective. They're seeing that person differently. And if you can take that person who's in the middle and put a situation there instead, you're each looking at the same situation from a different angle, a different perspective. And so that's why your opinion, your thoughts, what you have to say is just as valuable as the person across from you, across the room. They're seeing something different of the same situation. That doesn't make it right or wrong. It just makes it different. And so I think that's why this card came back up today, so that we could look at it again from another way, another perspective. And so you're listening to someone else's viewpoints, their point of view. When we slow down and we even take a look at our language and how we use it, with the talking stick, everyone's point of view is valuable and should be respected, even though you might not agree with it. You respect the person. Yeah. And that's a whole nother layer to it, right? Because how do you respect somebody? How do you give them the courtesy, the courtesy of listening to them, even though you may not respect them? That's another layer. Oh my goodness. But listening to other people and their viewpoint does something else. It gives you options you never considered, options you didn't think about yourself, because you can only see the situation from your one point of view, right? One of the things that I did a few years ago, a good friend of mine, Tammy Gullen, she was doing a healing method. I just lost the name of it. The human design. And she was helping me. She had done a reading for me. And because I wanted to get an understanding of, I was just rebuilding my business up here in Toma. And so I knew that the energy field was different. And so I needed another read, another example, another way of looking at it, right? And hey, Rob, thanks for joining. Another way of looking at it. And so Tammy did that for me. And then for Paul, I think it was his birthday or maybe it was Christmas, I had requested a reading for Paul for human design. And with the human design, it takes a look at how you bring in information, and it's a multi layered therapy or way of looking at energy. And we found out that I have an open gate at my throat chakra, which means that I have a way of being able to communicate and taking in all the information that I need to be able to express it. But there's a lot of options out there. So when you're in a room and you have an open gate on your throat, sometimes you have so much information that you're just kind of quiet and observing and taking it all in and trying to be able to work with that information, right? And someone who's next to you who has what's called a closed gate on their throat, their energy field, if you're close enough to them, their energy field will help you to narrow down the options, to be able to select a couple to be able to express, right? Now, Paul, turns out, is that he has an open ajna, which is the third eye. And he's a Gemini. Which means he takes in a lot of information, right, with that open gate. So much that it's overwhelming sometimes, and that's why a lot of it comes out into the talk. Lots of talking. Because he's trying to discern, he's trying to figure out which is the best method to use, right? And there was a time when we would be doing projects in the house, and everybody does this. They're working on their house, they're trying to get things done. It's on a weekend, you got limited time. And so in order to make sure that we get as far along in something as possible, I would suggest that we would split up. And I would go work on something over here, and he would work on something over there. When we're done with that, we'd come back together and see what else needs to be done, right? Well, it didn't quite work because Because I'd be working along and I'd be hearing him calling me, and asking me to come and look at something, or he'd come find me and say, "Come here, I need you to look at this." All right. So I would spend my time walking back and forth between what I was doing and listening to him. And let me tell you, when you're a married couple, that doesn't always work good, because I felt like my stuff wasn't getting done, but his stuff was, right? So with Tammy's reading with him for human design, that put that all into really a good perspective, because it was his open ajna. He had so much information, and to be able a way to do something, that there was just so many options. It was hard for him to narrow it down to figure out what needed to be done and how to do it. And so with me, because I have a closed ajna gate, a defined one. That's a better way to put it. Defined. When he's in my energy field, it's easier for him to narrow down the options. Okay. The opposite is true, is because my ajna is defined and his isn't. A lot of times I will take something to him and say, "I'm trying to do this and I can only see this one way of getting it done, or I don't have a way." And we would sit there and talk about it, and he would come up with a couple of ideas or possibilities that I couldn't see, that I didn't know existed or could exist. And so, once we understood the defined and undefined, or the closed or open gates, and how we communicate and how we take in information, was very helpful in our relationship, for one. But two, it helped us to capitalize, to use our strengths, right? And to be able to, when I go to him and say, "Could you please look at this? I need more options. I don't have any, or I only have the one, and I don't think it's going to work." It's kind of fun, actually, to watch him, come up with these options, and throwing them out like you throw out cards, one after another. We could do it this way. We could do it that way. And then watching how we can narrow it down to maybe one or two or three, and then decide which is the best one from that point. Perfect, right? We did that with what we would call a talking stick, but we really didn't have a talking stick, the tangible stick. What we did was we listened to each other without interruption, so that we could get the different viewpoints or options. I have another friend who does the same thing, Teresa Girardi. You want options about something? She's another Gemini. She has all these really cool ideas that I would have never even thought of. It's like, oh, well, wait, let me look at that, and I'll see what happens with that one. But it's good. It's good to be able to listen to someone else's point of view. It's good to be able to be open-minded enough to hear their point of view, to feel their point of view. I know that sometimes, especially in our culture, it's not exactly embraced. And because we all want to be heard, right? We all want to be seen. We all want to be valued. And with the talking stick, when you use the concept of the talking stick, that is the reason why you use it, is so that everyone's point of view is valued and is heard. Everyone who desires the opportunity to hold the stick and to have their say, is a good thing. But it also gives the possibility that you could pass on the stick, that not take the opportunity to have your voice heard. That's a possibility. And when someone does that, passes on their opportunity, the facilitator of the talking stick group has the stick going around, getting passed around. And so when everyone has had the opportunity to speak, to use the stick, the facilitator will send it around one more time, and letting everybody know that this is the final passing of the stick. And so the people or the person who chose not to have the opportunity has one last opportunity to say, okay, I have something to say. Yeah. And if you decide not to take it, then that's your decision, and that is the consequence of not taking the stick to speak is not having your voice heard. And so you can't really say later that, that you didn't have the opportunity. Everyone had the opportunity, and it was valued. So the talking stick. So, when we get the cards for the day, that card draw for the day and the energy, and we get the chance to go over it one more time or to discuss it or share it, take what feels good to you, what resonates with you, and what doesn't, that's okay. Just let it go. That part maybe wasn't meant for you. The other thing is that to be aware of how the energy is flowing today. And I always say to you, through you, and around you, is that the energy is going to bring about the energy of the talking stick somehow. And so you'll have the opportunity to either be a witness to it or the opportunity to have a direct participation in the energy. Maybe it's having the opportunity to have your voice heard and valued. Or maybe it is you who offers the opportunity to someone else to have their voice heard and uninterrupted and valued. Are you a direct participant, or are you bearing witness to the energy, right? Jamie Sams, I want to just share the application of the card. She says that the talking stick reminds us of the validity of the other viewpoints and teaches us how to listen and apply what we hear. We're being reminded not to interrupt others who are imparting wisdom. We are taught through listening that life has millions of options and answers to any dilemma. The talking stick card appears in your spread. You're probably not allowing yourself any options in your present situation, or you have become too stuck in one idea or one way to see something and created a self-created tunnel, right? So you open up and listen to the opportunities that are coming your way. The options are available to those who will hear. You're being given an opportunity to grow through an alternative route. That's the talking stick. Yeah. And Jamie Sams is actually a pretty good poet, too. She includes a poem with each of the cards. And here's the one for the talking stick. She writes, "Talking stick, remind me of each sacred point of view, complete within the circle of the sacred hoop." I like it. Talking stick, remind me of each sacred point of view, complete within the circle of the sacred hoop. The talking stick. Yay. Tonight, Thursday night at 8 p.m. Eastern Time, I'll be actually teaching a mini class through the Star Nations Academy closed group here at Facebook. We're going to be talking about soul traveling, and that's the actual journey, right? And we're going to be talking about that. So if you'd like to join us for that shamanic kind of discussion and sharing, you can do that. If you're not a member of the closed group, don't worry. Just go to the Star Nations Academy and closed group and request to join. And we'll take a look at your request and get you signed up. We'll do the accepting, and you can join us. Okay. Yeah, it's something I had decided that maybe as a giveaway to our community, that to be able to sit and talk about the shamanic points of view, that's another one, good talking stick. So that we have an opportunity and a place to be able to discuss these things, and if anybody has any questions, to be able to ask that question so that we can discuss it and maybe have an answer for it, yeah. So if you want to come and join us, please do. It's at 8 p.m. Eastern, and that's at the closed group, Star Nations Academy. And I will wish you a good Thursday. Have a good day. We'll see you back here tomorrow for tomorrow's card draw. And in Potawatomi, it's Bama Mina, meaning until we see each other again. Have a good day.